Father, this morning we've come before you to seek your face. In the beginning, you created the heavens and the earth. In your perfect timing, as you were creating everything, your purpose was to create and to set man and woman in it, to rule over it as husband and wife. Before any institution, there was first the institution of marriage. Even before the church, there was first the institution of marriage. In your infinite wisdom, this is what you established. And Father, you've given us this as an illustration. Even in your scriptures, you show us that there'll come a time as our King, our Savior, as a reward to him, you will give your church to him as a bride in marriage. Again, what a picture. Now we know, Lord, this is a type and shadow. We know that it is simply an illustration. But this illustration has tremendous value in your sight. And this morning, we want to hear from you. So we ask that you would move in such a way that the constructs of a man would not limit the ability of your people to hear from you, to receive, and Lord, to bring glory and honor to you through marriage, through the desire of marriage. And we thank you and we praise your holy name as we commit our time to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, if you would.
We are grateful that you chose to come and join us. We've had a busy day, a busy week, and Sarah and I have as a commitment. But our hope and our prayer is that as a result of your time being here, you think, I am so glad we came. It was truly an encouragement. That's our desire, that you go away after the last session saying, I am so thrilled we made the decision to come. So we are here to serve you in that regard and make that our goal and our hope for you. That this will not be a time that you look back and say, man, I could have been doing something better. That is our commitment to you. Thank you for honoring us by coming. We are tickled to be here. We've been looking forward to this event. And every one of you honor us. Sarah and I are so grateful to you. And we hope that you will laugh at all of my jokes. Male and female communication. It is a fun topic. It is a fun topic. She says, I have nothing to wear. What she means is she has nothing new.
Don't go there.
He says, I have nothing to wear. What he means is he has nothing clean. Now, how is it that you can say the same exact words? I have nothing to wear. I have nothing to wear.
Click it.
But you mean something different. That's amazing. How can that be? And it's based on male and female differences. And that's an innocent enough difference. But imagine she fixes an evening meal and afterwards she says, that's the worst meal I've ever made. He goes, no, it's not, honey. Now, where's that going to go? What are you saying? Are you saying I've made thousands of worse meals than that? Okay, Mama's boy. Just go moving with your mother for a couple of weeks and let her feed your fat face. But what if he was full of goodwill? What if he was full of goodwill? What he meant by what he said is, no, you haven't. You've never made a bad meal. You see how we get into these tensions and conflicts and troubles, irritations, fights, arguments? Bam! It can happen just that quick. What did you mean by what you said? Then again, maybe he been making some snide remarks over the last several weeks about her cooking. So when she said, that's the worst meal I've ever made. No, it's not, honey. Same words. Same words. But different tone. The first year of our life, as infants, we interpreted the whole world through the nonverbal. We watched our parents' facial expressions. We listened for tones. We didn't understand the meaning of the words. It's been suggested, even as adults, 80–90% of our communication is nonverbal. We're listening to what did you really mean by what you just said. I know what you mean. And so you can see how we get in these conflicts, because we're trying to read what the other means. Why is that? Why does this kind of thing happen? Well, I believe in part it's because God made us this way. He made us male and female. I love the statement of Jesus. He said, have you not read? He who made them from the beginning made them male and female. Have you not read? He who made them from the beginning made them male and female. I liken it to the fact that God made women to look at the world through pink sunglasses. And it colors what she sees. In fact, I don't know if you know it, but she has pink hearing aids. And it colors, it affects what she hears. And in fact, she speaks through a pink megaphone. Men, on the other hand, wear blue sunglasses and blue hearing aids and speak through a blue megaphone. So, for instance, if that woman is among 10 women and she says, I have nothing to wear, she speaks that through a pink megaphone. All 10 women who are listening through the pink hearing aids knows exactly what she meant or what she said. Oh, honey, I don't have anything new either, but we're going shopping in a few minutes. You want to come down with us? If that guy is speaking to 10 guys through his blue megaphone and they're listening through their blue hearing aids, and I don't have anything to wear, they'll all say, she ain't doing your laundry either. Interesting dynamic. Pink and blue. Not wrong, just different. And as I looked at Scripture, I realized there was a powerful verse, Ephesians 5:33. Ephesians 5:33. That is the summary statement to the most significant treatise in all of the Bible on marriage. Almost everybody who turns to the Bible for wisdom and insight on marriage will always land at some point on Ephesians 5, because it is kind of the pinnacle. It's the greatest treatise on marriage. And Ephesians 5 concludes with a powerful statement. It is as though this is the summary statement. It is as though this is the last word to the church from God. You know, my grandfather was dying, and he was on his deathbed, and he said, Emerson, come, son, I have something to show you. You and I know that whatever my grandpa said, it couldn't be the most important thing he's ever said to me. It's been said that a person's last words are the most important words that they will speak. It's as though God is saying to the church, come on, I want to speak to you. My last words of marriage. Listen to me, Jim. Listen to me, son. Listen to me. If you listen to me, everything's going to be okay. What I saw there is a pink and blue issue, a male and female issue. Paul, who penned it, writes this: husbands must love their wives, and wives must respect their husbands. And I thought, that's an interesting distinction. And I concluded that a wife needs to feel love for who she is, like she needs air to breathe. In fact, she has a love tank, so to speak, kind of an oxygen tank. And there's a hose connected to this love tank, and she needs to breathe in that love like she breathes in air. She just needs to feel loved. And when she is loved, she feels fulfilled. She's a happy camper. But if he comes in as a big elephant looking for some place to eat his peanuts and stands under her air hose, she's not going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to suffocate and die. No, she's going to get off my air hose, you beast, get off. If there's a baseball bat there, she's going to club that elephant right upside the head. And all he's doing is looking for some place to eat his peanuts. And all he knows now is he's bleeding. Get off my air hose, you beast. We'll come back to that. I will tell you that when her air hose is stepped on, she negatively reacts. And she's speaking through her pink megaphone, intending for blue hearing aid people to understand. Well, that second part of that verse says, the wife must respect her husband. Apparently, he needs to feel respected for who he is, apart from his performance. In the same way that she needs to be loved for who she is, apart from her performance. What I discovered is that no husband feels fond feelings of love and affection in his heart toward a wife he thinks despises who he is. It's not within his nature. Any more than a woman responds sexually to a man who's harsh and angry with her week after week. It's not within her nature. Her pink nature doesn't respond. She's not designed by God to respond to that. It's not within the male nature to respond to someone he thinks despises who he is. And what I discovered is these concepts not only apply to marriage, and we have many singles are here. A rose is a rose by any other name, and a male is a male, whatever else you call them, and a female is a female, no matter what you call her. That the nature tends to be the same. And he has this respect tank connected by an air hose. And he needs to breathe in that respect like he breathes in air. And when she comes in as a beautiful fawn, with all of her little fawnettes and has a picnic on his air hose, he's not going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to suffocate and die. He's going to kill me. No. Get out of there! Everybody get out of there! Yeah! Grouchy, grumpy, and get up. Interesting. Think about that. Husbands must love their wives. Wives must respect their husbands. Let me illustrate something else. How does this play itself out? What would be an illustration of a woman feeling unloved? What would be an illustration of a husband feeling disrespected? Well, let's start with a woman. Suppose it's January 15th and she gets on the scales. And she looks down and she's put on 13 pounds. She comes to her husband and says, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe all the pounds I put on since all those Thanksgiving meals, all the Christmas parties, all the New Year's celebrations. I can't believe it. I feel fat. I feel ugly. I don't even wear. I couldn't even my hair. He's a sensitive guy. Trained in the 90s. He listens. He goes to the bookstore the next day and he comes in and the lead book right in the bookstore, Dying for the Christian Woman. Every man makes this mistake once. The subtitle, Post-Holiday Menus. So he gets that book and brings it home. And he gives it to her. He thinks it's at Cape Canaveral. She goes ballistic. She goes right up. And as she's going up, she's screaming at him and pointing a finger. You men have two brains. You men have two brains. One's lost and the other's out looking for it. She calls him brainless idiot. Now what's going on? When she sees that diet book, her pink hearing aids go into dissonance. Her glasses fall over. And she hears a message coming through that diet book from him to her. And that message is this:
I do not accept you. I do not approve of you. I do not love you unless you look like a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader.
That's what she hears. That's what she hears. And she goes ballistic. She begins to Eve, you don't love me unless. You'll only love me if. You'll only love me if I perform. That's what she hears. And she reacts negatively. In fact, when she feels unloved, she reacts in very disrespectful ways. In fact, what we're going to see is when he feels disrespected, he reacts in very unloving ways. But what's also interesting is if she brought a diet book home for him, she brings it to him and gives him a diet book. Hey, thanks. Hey, what's for dinner?
Yeah.
And see, when he looks at himself in the mirror, he can see Atlas there. He can bring Atlas out anytime he wants.
That's right. Amen to that. We got Atlas.
May I suggest to you that body images issues are different between men and women? All the research points this out. We all are concerned about how we look, but I'm going to tell you that women are especially sensitive to appearance issues. Very sensitive. And what's even more interesting is that her best girlfriend came over with the diet book. Did you get that diet book? She says to her best girlfriend. Yes. Oh, are you going to go in that? Do you want to do it together? Should we start Monday? You see, when Pink speaks to the Pink megaphone, Pink hearing aids will go into dissonance. But when Blue speaks, go through dissonance. And also, sometimes, Pink can speak to her Pink megaphones about a diet book, and Blue doesn't go into dissonance. You can't never kind of know when it's going to happen. So when she feels unloved, she reacts, though, in ways that feel very disrespectful to him. Her negative reaction is trying to send him a message, I feel unloved right now. Unfortunately, at a certain point, he no longer hears the deeper cry of her heart. He only hears, I respect you, Buster, any further than I control you. What are we going to do about that dilemma? Well, let's think of a couple weeks down the road, and she's in that bookstore, and the lead book, The Key to Marital Bliss, Communication. And she picks up that book and starts reading it. She says, this is us. She buys it. That's the third marriage book this year she's purchased for this year. She brings it home, and she devours it from cover to cover. She says, he needs to read this. But he's busy. He's too busy really reading from cover to cover. So I'm going to highlight the yellow, so the two sections for And then she puts it on a stand next to the chair that he sits in when he watches football. But she notices he doesn't pick it up. Why? Because this is the third marriage book. In that third marriage book, his blue hearing aids start going into dissonance. And he white knuckles it as he watches football. He knows it's there. He knows it's there. So he's thinking, first two marriage books she got, we got huge fights. Huge fights. There's a third one. We're going to get huge fight. If I say something, I'm in trouble. If I don't say something, I'm in trouble. If I don't say anything, I'm in less trouble. So he stonewalls. He neglects it. Why? In his world as a male, he hears a message coming from her through the marriage book to him, which is this: I don't accept you. I don't approve of you. I don't respect you, Buster, unless you change right now. That's what he hears. Now, I'm not justifying that. He can be completely wrong. Hey, I'm not justifying the wife when she goes ballistic when he's trying to be helpful and gives her that. He may not even be coming close to saying, I don't love you, unless. And she may not even be coming close saying, I don't respect you, unless. But what I am going to say is there's a tendency within the nature of the female to interpret diet books through pink. She indicates the world through pink. And she sees pink and she sees things that threaten pink. I'm not saying he's justified for feeling that way about the marriage book. What I'm going to say is a male created by God. Not wrong, just different. And he interprets marriage books through a different grid. He doesn't see this as increasing love. He sees it as another situation that's going to result in him losing respect. And what's interesting is that if he brought home a marriage book to her, she would go, did you buy that marriage book for us? Do you want to read it? I mean, do you want to start tonight and just kind of go through the two of us reading out loud to one another? And then she's going to be on the phone to all her girlfriends, telling them that he brought home a marriage book. He got a marriage book. We're one. We're connected. We're soulmates. Why doesn't she get all bent out of shape? Because she filters the marriage book with a different color, with a different nature, called female. Why does he get all bent out of shape about the marriage book? And why not about the diaper? Because he's made male. Not wrong, just different. Fascinating. Powerful. But what's interesting is when he shuts down on that marriage book, when he refuses to read it, that stonewall, that neglect, that silence, at the level of intimacy in a woman's world screams, I don't love you. She would never do that. It's inconceivable. It's like fingernails down a chalkboard. How can you do this? You see, when he feels disrespected, unfortunately, he can begin to react in ways that feel hugely unloving to her. And I discovered something. I call it the love and respect connection. That without love, she reacts without respect. And without respect, he reacts without love. And then without love, she reacts without respect. And without respect, he reacts without love. And without love, she reacts with respect. And this baby starts to spin, and it gets crazy. If I came into this room and flipped on the lights 2 or 3 times and they didn't come on, you wouldn't think anything about it. But if I stood there for a half hour, 30 minutes, ever since I've been up there, and flipping them on and off, but they aren't coming on, right? I just keep flipping them on and off. You say I'm crazy. Craziness is when we keep doing the same thing over and over again with the same ill effect. And we're compassionate for people who are mentally handicapped, for instance, and mentally crazy, as we might say. They'll sit and walk and do this, or they'll keep repeating the same thing. And we're compassionate because we know it's a physiological problem. But there's a marital craziness. People with sound mind who've been married for many years are what I call the crazy cycle. They keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. The topics change, but they keep spinning on the same crazy cycle, and they do it week after week after week after month after month after year after year. Good-willed people, not evil-willed people. Spinning, and they're getting old. Now, someone might be saying, well, don't we women need respect? Or what are you saying? Are you saying that women don't need respect? Are you saying that men don't need love? No. It's a continuum. We all need love and respect. There's no question about that. In fact, somebody might say, hey, you're from the Michigan area. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Aretha, baby. Aretha Franklin, the soul queen. She sang that song, Women Want Respect. Yeah, that's right. Although, did you know that Otis Redding wrote that song? In 1965, it was released as a single by him for 2 years, and then they changed it to fit this up-and-coming soul queen in the late 60s called Aretha Franklin. I hope the irony of that doesn't escape your notice. But apart from that, yes, women need respect and they need love. But here's what I discovered. If women really wanted R-E-S-P-E-C-T as their most longed for value from their husband, then tell me why in the whole card industry, why is there not one card from a husband to a wife that says, baby, I really respect you? It's not there. Because you don't want that card. You want L-O-V-E. Now the card industry tried it, I'm sure, because they know Aretha's song. And those cards just bomb. But also, by the way of insertion, you find one card from a wife to a husband that says, baby, I really respect you. We become a love-dominated culture. The Beatles saying, all you need is love. And we bought it, hook, line, and sinker. But there's something deeper within the souls of your sons that if we don't rightly diagnose, he's going to be an unhappy boy. A very unhappy boy. And also, If you show disrespect to a woman week after week, disrespect, 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 she'll go, you know what? What? You don't even love me. How can you treat me disrespectfully and say that you love me? She'll land on love. You show disrespect to a man week after week. Disrespect, 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 disrespect. They'll go, you know what? What? I don't deserve this disrespect. Everybody respects me but you. He lands on respect. Interesting. Why is that? Well, what I discovered in the New Testament is that husbands commanded to agape love his wife. Agape is that unconditional love. There's agape and phileo, Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, and that's not the Greek word for friendship love, basically. And then there's eros, erotic. And those three Greek words all represent marriage. Agape, unconditional element, the friendship, phileo, and then the eros, or the erotic dimension. But no wife, did you know, is commanded to agape love her husband in the New Testament? Only husbands are commanded to agape. Why? I thought to myself as I looked at that. I had the privilege of studying the Bible 30 hours a week for nearly 20 years for the pulpit ministry in college town. I have my PhD from Michigan State University as well in family-related studies. I have a master's in communication, so I kind of have a science bent, but I also have a scriptural bent. In fact, if you're an unchurched person, I understand that too, because I was in church for many years, so I want to be sensitive to your spiritual journey. But many of you who are outside the church are very concerned about the hypocrites in the church. And many people here are church people, and we all feel this need to be challenged. That's why they're here. We feel the need in our own souls to be challenged, to be more consistent in our marriage. So if you let me preach the choir, permit me to do that, because the choir sometimes needs to be preached to. Many people in the church are saying, we need a challenge, we need encouragement. And if you're unchurched, help me, work with me as we go through this. We want to be very sensitive. I was in college for many years. I understand your presuppositions, your worldview. I'm not here to offend you. I'm here to challenge Christians. But I also want you to hear something that I think will encourage you. My mom and dad were in church, and I wish I belonged. And I'll tell you a little more about my own personal background. I wish mom and dad would have had an opportunity to hear this. Because I went to bed until I was 11. I cried myself to sleep many a night. I was eventually sent to military school at age 13 and was there until age 18 because of family difficulties. And my mom and dad were good little, but they were on this crazy cycle. And it affected me deeply. I sometimes in recent days have been praying, oh, if somebody had just gotten to my mom and dad, like maybe I'm having the privilege of getting to some of you. I know that my dad would not have wanted to be here. He would have come under protest. He would have felt very uncomfortable until I started telling a few jokes. I know my dad. I know some of you are like my dad. I'm here to serve you. If you're unchurched, I understand. But back to the believers. In the New Testament, to know husband is commanded, to know wife is commanded to agape love. Only the husband is. And I thought, why is that? Because God designed women to love. It's within her nature to nurture. She loves to love. It's something very powerful. God isn't going to command her to do what he created her to do because he's not in redundancy. That's why when you say to God, hey, yeah, does your wife love you? No. Does she like you? No. Not today. And not that I think she liked yesterday either. See, men don't lack the assurance that their wives love them unless she says, I no longer love you. And you'll find a little bit of a reversal here. Some of you are going to say, well, we're a little bit reversed. I need respect. I ask everyone who says that, are you loving your husband? And you know the answer. See, he'll become insecure about your love when he senses you no longer love him. But most women want to love. It's within their nature to nurture. They love to love. You got to wound a woman for her to stop that. But in the deepest recess of her heart, she's designed by God to love, and she wants love in response. I just wish he loved me as much as I love him. That's the typical sentiment. So guys don't lack assurance. That's why when you bring that marriage book home to him, he doesn't say, you don't love me. He doesn't process it that way. He knows you love him. And even if he were to say, you don't love me, you say, I do too. Don't you say that. You see, that's an affront to your nature. You would rebuke him. But you might go on and say, oh, no, I don't feel the respect for you anymore. So what happens in the marriage relationship, because he's under command to agape love, he does that less by his nature. That's why God commands him to love, because it's not within his nature to love like you love. And that's why you long for him to be more loving, because you sense something within his nature. So when he feels disrespected, unfortunately, it's very natural for him to react in very loving ways. But what I discovered is it's very natural for you to love. But when you feel in love, it's very natural for you to react in very disrespectful ways. All right, this triggers the crazy side, big time. Now, are
Let's go ahead and do the women part.
women conscious of this issue of love? Well, yes. Think of the 5th anniversary, and he comes home and he says, "Hey, it's our 5th. I saved some extra money. I'm going to take you out to work. Where do you want to go to eat? Where do you want to go?" I don't know. "No, it's our 5th. Where do you want to go?" I don't know. "Hey, go. Oh, come on. It's our 5th. I want to take you where you want to go. Where do you want to go?" You decide. You want me to decide? "No, I want to take you where you want to go. Where do you want to go?" You decide. Really? "Hey, you know, I read in the Midwest magazine about the juiciest and best steaks in all of the Midwest. Do you know that truck stop out on Highway 96? I don't want to go there." He says, "Are you the one I was just talking to?" "Go ahead, pick a fight. I asked you where you want to go, you told me to decide. So I decided, now you decided we're not going to do it. I decided." And he stomped off, and she stomped off. Two good-willed people in the 5th are stomping off from one another. Good-willed people. Now, what in the world is Pink thinking at that moment? She's very conscious of love, gentlemen. She filters everything through Pink. And here's what she's processing. Here's how she's thinking. If he loves me as much as I love him, he'll figure out where it is I want to go.
Doesn't work.
He'll read my mind.
Not wrong, just different. That's how God is wired. That's why we laugh at that, because we experienced that. But from a blue perspective, she lied. So who's right? Yes. Who's wrong? Yes. It just depends on whether you want to filter through pink or blue. And people are divorcing over this kind of thing. My mom and dad divorced one another when I was 1.
All right, go ahead and move to the slides of Amanda who set us up on the PowerPoint. Please. User. All right. Are the lights all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Told you that that little snippet was just going to just upset you, because the entire 5 DVDs are filled nonstop. You just, there's a book that goes with it. I just encourage that when we do have that you sign up for it, because it's just great stuff. Am I on?
It sound like it.
All right, good stuff. All right, so go to my first slide, Ms. Joe. Anthony, with a nice loud voice, read my caption.
You can only see what you are prepared to see.
Now, I know the slide itself is a little bit difficult to see, but anybody tell me what that is? Those are mountain goats, right? And I know it's very difficult. I apologize. Right?
Good focus.
But I want somebody to represent the group. Somebody, and there can be 2 people, and you select them. Select 2 people from this group, and I want 2 people to get up, and I want 2 people to come and stand right here. And I want you to get as close as you can, and I want you to examine this, because there are two snow leopards, or what they call snow lions, in this picture stalking these mountain goats. And they're actually, one of them is very visible, one of them I'm going to have to definitely show you where it's at. So it's like two people.
Anthony and Paul.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Is this male, female, or?
The group.
Okay.
Is the group happy with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Good job, Derek.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll let them, and then maybe we'll have two
Two,
females go
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
All right.
Read up.
We're going to give you guys about a minute or two.
If you can't get them,
Husbands
there's
against
two women and
wives.
two things that you.
I want to go see it.
And Joe, maybe you might want to mess with the focus just a little bit, and use the words. I don't know if you can focus it any better. But I'm going to give you guys, I'm watching my second hand. That's good right there. That's good focus right there. Heck, I can see from way back here.
I could see the goat better now.
Okay, good. Because you're going to have to see the goat.
Because
If you can't see the goat, you're definitely not going to see
I'm
the
gonna see the line.
Yeah, you can't see the goat.
oh, I see the other one now. Focus better.
Well, don't tell the females.
I see one.
No.
All right, time's up.
Just one.
Okay, females.
Melissa, come on, Melissa.
Man, that's closer.
Actually, fine. And
So Anthony, did you see them both? Paul, did you see them both? Or did you-
maybe.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry.
Jackie, you might actually want to get on Amanda's shoulders.
Give me your stools.
Don't be afraid to think out of the box. Do you guys see the one?
No, Anthony even pointed it out, and I'm like, what does he see?
I see.
I see one. So I see the one that Anthony pointed out.
All right. All right. All right, good. All right, good. Okay, so they saw the one. See the face? You can see the eyes right there. And the other one, all you get to see is just the eyes. They're right there. Yeah, they're hung right down in there.
Oh, now, okay.
Yeah, they're right down in there, both of them.
But they were right side by side?
Yeah, one's right above the other one.
Okay. I thought I saw that.
Yeah, the one right
But I only
above.
saw the one that, I only saw it because you pointed out the first one.
I might have shared this with you before, but when I was in Africa, we went on a safari, and our
You compare. I mean,
our tour guide
they blend in.
said that we would be very fortunate to see one of the big five. And one of the big five, the five is the hippo, the rhino, the rhinoceros, the elephant, the lion, and the giraffe. Now, all the other animals in Africa, they're pretty much given. But they said if we were able to see any one of those big five, then we had a successful safari. And because he said that a lot of times they don't even get to see. There's times where they don't see any of them. However, God just really blessed us. We saw 4 of the big 5
Oh, wow.
because the only thing that we did not see was the rhinoceros. However, one of the first ones that as we were driving, one of the things that we were in was this, what looked like to be this oversized van without a roof. And so when you stood up, you actually stood outside of the roof, above the roof, about right here. So you could stand like this and above the roof, right? And so you sat down, and there was all windows, of course, and everything. But then when you stood up, you actually stood outside of the caravan. You stood out. It's pretty neat. Well, so we're driving in this, back in the safari, and we see these ostriches. And contrary to what people say, ostriches do not bury their heads in the sand. But what they do is they place their heads on the ground and they bend their heads so it actually looks from a particular angle, it looks like their heads are buried in the ground. But actually their heads are actually laying on the ground, so it does look like it's buried. But these ostriches, there was 5 of them, and they were doing that, but you could tell that they were somewhat disturbed. And they were all facing inward, but none of them, they weren't necessarily facing each other, they were just facing inward, but they were all looking in different directions. And the tour guide says they're being hunted or they're being stalked. And so, of course, he was driving very slow, and at some point he just stopped and he said, "Look." And he gave us a direction to look in, and sure enough, there was a lion or a lioness, a female lion, and she was hunkered down in this tall grass, but the tall grass was just barely tall enough to cover her, and she was fairly large. But she was just as still as could be, but, and I got some great pictures of her, but she was just there, and she would just move like just inches at a time, and just moving up on him, and she was probably about 100 feet from him. And you're just kind of like waiting for her to spring. And so, and everybody in this, there was probably about, maybe 5 or 6 of us in this caravan. And of course, most of you know Dan Sims. He was right next to me. However, I'm looking, but I'm kind of looking around, and I look at the tour guide who happens to be driving, and he has a partner with him who's sitting in the passenger seat. And both of them are totally looking somewhere else. He's looking somewhere else. We're all intrigued with this, and this is very intriguing, and they're not even looking over here. So I'm thinking to myself, what has their attention, especially his attention? And he's like fixed. So I'm like, So I start looking around, and I start looking, and sure enough, there's a lion stalking us. And sure enough, this lion's coming up. Now, understand, this caravan probably stood, I'm going to say, maybe about 6, maybe 7, between 6 and 7 feet from the roof, off the ground. So, but as far as I'm concerned, that wasn't high enough off the ground for that stinking lion to jump up there. So I'm thinking, okay, Dan, I love you, brother.
Going over.
I remember starting the Bible. Daniel and the lions. You're Dan. There might be a connection here, right? Let's see if it still works. Yeah. Maybe you'll be content with the little guy. I said to the tour guys, should we be moving? Because this line just keeps on coming up on us. And he says, no, just keep watching. And now everybody else is like, and their cameras are going off, and it's like, yeah, you're going to get the last picture as a lion's mouth is swallowing you in your camera. And this lion comes right up to the van and rubs up against it and comes around, and it's like this lion was supposed to chase the ostrich towards him or her. I think it was a him. And we got in the middle, and it's like we were just a distraction to the lion. That's all it was. And the tour guide knew it. See, I didn't know it. Because he hadn't figured out we were food yet. Because all he saw was the van. He hadn't figured out yet that there was food in the van. Or she hadn't figured out. I don't know, whichever. But I'm sitting there thinking, this lion can snatch us up. My point is this. None of us were prepared to see more than simply than what was being pointed out to us by this tour guide. But I'll guarantee you, after that, I was looking everywhere and anywhere. Now the tour guide was prepared for everything. He came prepared to see everything. Marriage, life, is just like that. If we're only prepared to see what we want to see, then we're not going to see what God has for us. And God always has a fix for whatever it is that we're facing. But if we're not prepared to see that, that's why so many times things go unfixed. And then we say to God, why is that? And Dr. Emerson pointed out some real strong reasons why things don't get fixed. Number one, pink and blue, correct? Blue, pink.
That's funny they happen to have that.
I was looking for something pink to
What
put on,
extra
so it
credit
would
is
just be blue. But I figured you guys are going to figure it out anyway, right? All right, so give me my next slide. So here's what we're going to cover today. This morning, we're going to cover the pink and blue. No, not better, just different. There's this thing about headship, and we're not going to cover it this morning. We're just going to talk a little bit about it. But there's this whole thing about headship in the scriptures that so many Christians have just really messed up. They've messed it up because they tried to find headship that's in the scriptures by using human terms, human understanding, and worldly approach. What do I mean by that? We have worldly people trying to tell us how a marriage should be approached and how it ought to be, and totally ignoring the one who designed it,
Yes.
the one who created it. And we have to believe that God knew exactly what he was doing. And God never once designed marriage with the intention to make anybody inferior to anyone. And And it really bothers me that whenever I hear headship being discussed, taught, it's always being taught from this position of inferiority, bringing it back to some type of what seems to be equality. And I think that that is just horrible. Because what it should be taught from is equality to position. Because that's God's design. Does that make sense? In other words, you don't take a vehicle that's been in the junkyard for the last 20 years and set it out on a platform and teach people who know very little to nothing about the automotive industry, about vehicles, and use this as an illustration. And say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to repair this vehicle and we're going to restore it and bring it back. And we're going to replace this and replace that. That's just ludicrous. What you do is you start out with the way it is supposed to, and then people who have the understanding can then bring things back to restoration. So let me just say this about headship. Number one, we know that Peter, inspired by the Holy Spirit, says that the Father is the head of Christ, and Christ is the head of man, and man is the head of woman. Now, for anybody who thinks that there's an inequality in that statement about headship, needs to understand the Trinity. Because there is no inequality in the Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are all equal, co-equal. There is no such thing as archaism or hierarchy. If that statement is correct, which I believe the Bible teaches that unequivocally correct, then that means that there is no such thing as inequality between male and female. That's a good place for an amen. There is no such thing as inequality. If there's no inequality between male and female, then we still have headship, but now we have taken out the stumbling stone of inequality. And the only thing that needs then is to understand. Because I heard this, matter of fact, I just heard this yesterday from a Christian who was trying to explain to non-Christians headship. And I heard this. Well, actually, true headship, when you think about it, is man submitting to his wife more than she submits to him. And I'm saying, where did you get that from? That sounds like, to me, like somebody who has been beating his wife. I'm not saying that this person was doing it, I'm just saying it sounds like somebody who beats his wife and now wants to make up for it by letting the pendulum swing the other way. And they go to another extreme. So let me just make sure that we understand something. The Greek word for submit has two very important connotations to it within that semantic range. One of them is serve, and the other one is to do, that it should be done voluntarily. So when we read it, depending on your translation, whatever your translation is, where it says wives submit to your husband, or actually submit to your own husband, That word actually could be easily translated as wives, serve your husbands voluntarily as unto God. Does God force any of us to serve him? To submit to him? No. Now, he does command us. He does desire it, and he does deserve it. But at the end of the day, does he force us? Now, he'll discipline us. But does he force us? No. Because at the end of the day, it is, he leaves it up to us to, out of the act of obedience, which is a illustration, a demonstration of our love for him, that we do it. No different. So when, here's what I said to him, I go, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but here's what I think what you're saying, or at least what you're trying to say, because those non-saved people there. And I didn't want to confuse them. I said, here's what I think you're trying to say. Husbands want to, because Paul then in Ephesians says, husbands, love your wives as Jesus loved the church and gave his life. So if you take that passage, then what actually Paul is saying is, husbands, you need to take the lead in actually doing two things, demonstrating and teaching. I used to be the director of the football league in Broomfield, up in the Metropolitan. And one of the things that we would do is we would send the coaches, or at least ask them to go and get some training. And I remember taking some of this training myself. One of the things that they would ask us was, they would say, is a coach a manager of the team? And is a manager a coach of the team? Are they one and the same? And the answer is no. They're not. Just like somebody who serves and somebody who teaches isn't necessarily doing the same thing. And that's what Paul is saying to the husbands. He's saying, listen, husbands, you need to teach your wives. In other words, when God put Adam and Eve in the garden, he first took Adam and taught Adam. And then he told Adam, here's your wife. Right? He made Eve from Adam. And then, but you don't see conversation between God and Eve. You don't find anywhere where God says to Eve, Eve, you can't have of this tree. You can't eat of this tree. Do you? But there is an inference that Eve knew that she could not eat of that tree, because the serpent even says, has God said? So where did Eve know that? Well, she knew it from her husband, because her husband had taught her. And he had demonstrated it by him not even touching it, because that's what God told him. Not only not to eat it, but he wasn't even supposed to touch it. So Paul comes along in Ephesians and he tells the husbands to also to lay their lives down. And that, again, you can draw that from there. So true headship begins, because we can do that. And here's one of the things I said to him. I go, where do you see in the Bible where God submits to his church? Because if that's true that husbands are to submit to their wives, then we should be able to find that in the scriptures based upon that headship principle. Are you following me? Because that's an incorrect interpretation of that word. But we do see God serving his church, don't we? Yeah, we do. Jesus served. Remember? He washed the feet of the disciples. And when he stood up, he said, I have washed your feet. He didn't say, now wash mine. He said, now wash each other's
Yes.
as a demonstration. So we see that. We do see that. We see the Holy Spirit serving us. Don't we? But we don't see God ever submitting himself to us. Are you following? And I just want to make sure that we understand that headship by God's design is something great and wonderful, and we need to stop trying to bend it and twist it so it fits
That's right.
our human model and understanding. It doesn't need to. Our human understanding and modeling needs to fit God. And when a man and a woman gets it right, it is not only very pleasurable, enjoyable, but it actually does not only work, but it works in so many different areas and ways. And I know this is just a very little bit of teaching on this and understanding, but I have gone to length teaching on this, but I think it's important that we understand this headship, because the abuse has been, I'm the head, you do what I say, like it or lump it. The other part has been, no, the one who has the stronger giftings, that's the head, and that's incorrect. Which, by the way, don't confuse that. For example, I'll use my own marriage. Both Tina and I have very strong administrative giftings, very strong. Tina, in her lifetime, she has worked for banks. 2 different times she was an accountant for 2 different banks. Now, I do very well handling money, very well. However, Tina does very well handling money. Now then, as a good administrator, you want to allow people to use their gifting and grow in their gifting. You don't want to take it from them. You want to let them grow, and you want to encourage and nurture it. And so, all of our finances are handled by Tina. Now, the stigma is this. Whoever handles the checkbook is the one who's in charge. Right? That's the way it is in this country. That's the stigma. But that's not in God's economy. If you have the gifting, I remember I was counseling this one couple, and this wife says, my husband just refuses to lead our family in a Bible study. And I asked her, I said, do you love doing it? She goes, I love doing it. I go, why don't you do it? She goes, well, he says that she goes, well, because he's the man. And I said, show me in the Bible where it says he has to lead the Bible study. And she goes, what are you saying? I said, I can show you in Scripture where it says, come together in unity, seek the Lord, pray. The power of agreement, how significant and important the Word of God is, and how important it is for the man to demonstrate in being a role model. But I don't know anywhere in the Scriptures where it says the man has to lead the Bible study. And she goes, what? Do you mean I can lead the Bible study? I go, absolutely. I don't know what church you're going to that says a woman can't lead a Bible study. If God's given you that ministry, move in it. And what liberty came and freedom came to that family. But because we get caught up in these different types of semantics, these stereotypes, we hinder ourselves. But understanding headship and realizing exactly, did Christ hinder Mary Magdalene from her ministry? No. No, not at all. Mary Magdalene, matter of fact, washed his feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. And we call that ministry the ministry of grace. Because Jesus said, one who is forgiven much loves much. Did Jesus hinder the woman who broke that alabaster jar and anointed him for his burial? He didn't say, hey, stop that, a man should be doing that. No, matter of fact, we recognize that women have been, by God's design, have been given this ministry that we as men just miss. That actually makes the church have this sweetness, this aroma, this comfort to it. Because if it was left up to us, I mean, I probably would never put nothing like that up.
Me either.
Anyway, you guys understand. And so again, I just want to touch on it. Any questions on that? Are we still good with the lights? Because I know it's getting a little bit.
Cloudy.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, so, and then we're going to talk about deepest need, communication, relationship, boundaries. Let's go to the next one. All right, so pink and blue. The difference, God made them man and woman. Always remember this. Especially you that have children and you that will have children. You that have grandchildren. You that will be around children. Please. I hear this all the time. Hey, let's do this. Guys against the girls. Girls against the guys. And we have fun with it. Just be careful. Because there is a very, very subtleness to that. That the world wants to pit male and female against each other. And by God's design, He just made us different. Satan is the one that found the woman and pit her against her husband. And you go, where do you get that from? All you have to do is go to 1 Timothy and hear what Paul has to tell Timothy when Paul tells Timothy, remember, Timothy, it was Eve that was deceived, not Adam.
That's right.
And there's a lot to be said in that comment. A lot. Satan knew that if he could pit those two against each other, he could bring about the fall of man. And he did. And so what we want to do is, there's nothing wrong with healthy competition. Nothing wrong with that. But what we want to make sure what we do is make it healthy and not make it competitive to where there is this demeaning. Because that demeaning will carry all the way. All the way. We want to make sure that mom is appreciated for who she is, for what she does, and the things that she does. And we want to make sure that those things are known. Same thing with dad. And we're going to get into some of that a little bit more. All right?
That was something I came across, Pastor, when we were talking this last Wednesday. Just something so simple as God didn't make man then woman. He made man and woman. And just that little change in that between then and just kind of opened my eyes.
Yeah.
What do you say?
So simple.
Talk slow.
God didn't make man then woman, he made man and.
Yeah.
How does the healthy competition look
Reason she goes, what is a healthy competition? What would it look like? Number one, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, let's have the males against the females. All right? However, what if the males win and the females lose? How would we want to handle that? Because normally, because males compartmentalize, in other words, we put it in compartments. Because males compartmentalize, it can go like this. You only won because we let you. So the guys put it in there, they put a lock on it, and it's like, oh well. That's how come you see commercials, and the woman has the drill, and the guy's going like, how does that work? And it's like, really? And so all the guys are sitting there watching that, and they're going like, really? That's so stupid. And the females are going, that really energizes me, because now I can go out and buy a drill. I'll never use it, but, and that's all they want to do. They want to sell drills. But because guys compartmentalize, no big deal. However, women, they don't compartmentalize, so they'll never make a commercial where guys sitting there with different skillets and saying, and a woman sitting going like, I don't know how to use that. And the guy's saying, step aside, I'll show you, pay attention. Because the females would burn all the department stores to the ground. You know, even if there was some that didn't know how to cook, they don't want to hear that. Because they can't compartmentalize it. It'll go around in their head forever and ever and ever and never find a place to stop. It's like, how dare they say that? What are they thinking? That's why when things are being said about guys, when jokes are being told, guys will say jokes like, well, I'm the boss in my house. No, I have the last word in my house, and it's usually yes, dear. Because again, guys compartmentalize, they can get past it, but flip that around and the female will say, what? I'll tell you. So a healthy competition, you really have to really put some thought into it. Because at whatever the competition is this, it cannot demean the sexes. So in other words, let's just say the males lose because it's easy for them to take the loss, accept the loss. It should be something like this. You know what? I appreciated how difficult it was to beat you guys because you guys didn't make it easy. You guys were very, very good. Because now what you're doing is, even though there's compartmentalizing, and I'm going to show you this and why it's so important for a guy to hear something like that. If you're going to, for a female, if a female loses, it's totally different, and I'll show you the reason why.
Is that like stroking your ego?
We got to be careful with that. What's wrong with an ego? An ego is full of lies. And I'm going to show you the reason. Remember, an ego is always about how I want others to think of me. Because it's not who I really am. Okay? But remember, self-worth is based upon what? Self-worth is based upon I am valued. Not that I have value, but I am valued. Because Jesus says, I went to the cross for you, even yet while you were a sinner. I gave my life for you. So that's based upon the fact that I am valued. And that word value comes from a mathematical term. It's an accounting term. Melissa, who knows about accounting, I can say this because she understands this. But in accounting, what you have is you have a deficit and you have, don't you have an asset, right? You have these two columns. And in this column, you have what you're minus, but over here you have what you have, right? Okay, good, Jack. You're also.
I
So
work
you
in
know.
accounting.
So over here, if you have value, when you total it up, you actually have a positive. And Jesus says, when before you knew me, you had negative. So people who say, well, I have self-worth, I have value, I'm sorry, that's not true. That's why so many people turn to drugs, alcohol, and everything else. Because that dog don't hunt. But for a believer, see, and this is where a lot of believers mess up. And Paul talks to them in Romans about that. He says, how come if you've been set free, how come we still living like a slave to sin? Because now in this column, you actually have value. You actually, because Jesus says, yeah, well, you're a sinner, I gave my life for you. Because why? I value you. It's no longer I have value, I am value. So now all of a sudden it begins to change. See that? So in other words, for example, I tell my daughter here, who one day by God's purpose, who's waiting for the man that God has for her, and I'm telling her, you wait, while all the world around her is doing their thing, trying on different shoes to see if they fit. This is all metaphor for the radio. But she's waiting because why? Because I am valued, and one day God's going to put a man in there that's going to add to the value, and that number is going to increase as God promises, with all of his promises. And that's the benefit. So you see, there's a big difference. So when we talk about ego, ego is over here on this deficit side, and it's filled with lies. But once you remove the curtain and you look at the man moving the levers, you find out it's Satan. And it's nothing but lies, empty lies.
So when you were saying that without Christ, you have value, but it's unrealized value. To tell somebody, to witness to somebody who's unsaved and tell them you're valued in God's eyes, it's not necessarily true. It is true, but it's unrealized value until they accept it.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll add one other thing. Unrealized and unwanted. It can become realized, but until they want it, it will still remain a deficit. They have to want Jesus because he won't force himself on anyone. Because the scripture says that God desires that no man would perish but all come to repentance. And there's a lot of people that know God, but they just don't know him as their Lord.
Because like we could say, well, John 3:16, God says, God so loved the world. Well, that's the value placed on the world. However, there's still a process there's still something you have to do in the sense of accepting that free gift which contains that value.
Yeah. The world, the entire world is potentially saved. Because salvation is for everyone. The problem is not unless a person accepts it, they're doomed.
It's a no-go.
They're damned. All right. Remember the diet book? When isn't the issue the issue? Somebody give me some more examples.
Of how
Yeah,
the
remember
woman
the-
perceives, how the husband may have brought it home and the woman perceives.
Yeah, what are some of, yeah, so,
Oh, you're calling me fat now and I gotta exercise.
yeah, that's the diet book, but go ahead. Nan.
Okay.
Like if he comes home and he's tired, and he says, I'm tired, and then I would say, no, you're angry. What are you angry at?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just tired. Then why are you acting angry?
Okay, good. And that's just that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So good, yeah. What's
I got
another one?
misunderstood, sorry.
Melissa.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Or when he's like quiet and you're like, what's wrong? And he's like, nothing. And you're thinking, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And, well, wait a minute, because is there usually something wrong?
There can be, yeah.
No, there usually is, and let me tell you the reason why. If you remember, back in Genesis, there's a term that's often used with Adam. When Adam stood there and allowed Eve to bite into the fruit and didn't say anything. What's that called? Yeah, the silence of Adam. One of the things that we men do, and believe it or not, we do it because we're honorable. We do it because we're honorable. And Dr. Emerson alluded to it. And he alluded to it with the marriage book. A woman will confront to resolve. She'll confront a situation to resolve it. A man doesn't do that. Because a man knows that a man will get punched in the nose if he keeps pushing the issue. Because that's the way men behave. A man, if he just keeps on pushing it, boom! It's like, well, I knew that was coming because he told me to shut up enough times. But women, that's not the way they do it. A woman will say, no, that's not what I said. Let me say it again. It's like, that's still the same way I heard it, and I'm not going to change the answer. And they'll ask 1,001 questions, and then they'll go, one more. Okay. And then the next day, I just have one more question to ask.
Yes.
Because
Has my husband been talking to you?
because a woman will confront to resolve.
Yes.
And a man,
Stores it.
because a man doesn't speak, hear, or think pink. And because he speaks blue, hears blue, and has been answering blue, and because he can't make the interpretation, what he'll do is this: he shuts down. Just like Adam did. He shuts down. Now for the woman, that's being passive. And because a woman has seen that enough times, even when the man really is tired and there really isn't anything, it doesn't make a difference. It's like, you know what? Been there, done that. You're hiding something, and I want to know, and I'm not going to let go until you tell me. You're like a Rottweiler. And so now the guy has to come up with something. You're right. You know what?
It comes up with something.
I spent $2 on something. Why didn't you just tell me that? That's not a big deal.
Because I had to think it over.
Liar. You see, you're a liar. You're lying. It's just, and it just gets worse. But you see, we as men, that's what we do. We shut down. And the reason we shut down is because at some point we're going to do and say something. We'll usually say something before we do it. But it's going to happen. And here's the thing. We'll be able to eventually compartmentalize it, but the woman won't. And 5 years, 10 years, 20 years,
It's kind of like
all of a sudden,
Take it easy.
when you least expect it, it'll come out. And it's like,
Where'd that come from?
really? I don't even remember that. Oh yeah, that's convenient, isn't it? Now here's the thing. For a guy, we can, not only can we compartmentalize, but we can actually put a lock on it. Now, you women hate it until, guess what? You say, now that's something I want you to put a lock on. Because I don't ever want to talk about it ever again. So, by God's design, believe it or not, you want that compartmentalization. Just like for us guys, there's some things that we don't want it ever compartmentalized. And I'm going to show you what some of those things are. When I show you, you're going to understand that God knows what He's doing. The way He created us, though He created us different, it has such a great purpose. But we have been so manipulated and influenced by the world that we don't realize that what God has designed is so wonderful. If we would use it for His design and for His purpose, we could actually live in a marriage that is good, even better, and even greater. So, keep that in mind. Here's the other thing too. This is just a free one. And this is going to blow you women away. It really is. But this is proven fact. Guys can actually have a thought and not think of anything. So when you say, what do you think about? Nothing. Yeah, right. That's impossible. Not for a guy. A guy can actually sit there and not even have a thought. Women can't. Women can't do that. And right now, guys are right now having thoughts and you're like, wow, they're right. He's right. I just didn't think of something. And women can't do that. And the reason I say that is because sometimes a guy will be sitting there in a restaurant and they're like, so what are you thinking about? Nothing. Liar, I saw where you were looking at. And like they'll be like,
Yeah, right. You're not like that.
it's like, I'm serious. Not until you said something, I can't even tell you what I was thinking.
There's a nail out of the window there.
And again, like I said, I wish I had more time to go into all this kind of stuff, but that is a fact. It just is. All right. So here's the thing, and we're going to talk a little bit about communication down the road here. But think about it. The issue isn't the issue. And the reason why I really want to point that out is because Dr. Emerson was talking about the crazy cycle. So let's go. And this is the crazy cycle right here. Keep this in mind. The crazy cycle is always like this. It's always when she does not feel loved, she will react disrespectful. When he feels he's not being respected, he will always act unloving towards her. When she feels like she's not being loved, she will always act disrespectful towards him. And that thing will go on and on and on. And can I just say this to you? When a couple is in a crazy cycle, the crazy cycle doesn't stop. It just slows down. In other words, you can live in the crazy cycle and never leave it. Never leave it. And I'll show you some more stuff and you'll understand when I make my point. I'm going to also show you, according to Dr. Emerson, which I know for a fact because I do it with Tina, we know how to get out of the crazy cycle, just as like we know how to get into the crazy cycle. All right? Let me just tell you this, because some of you might be thinking, wow, this is really good stuff, and so you should have a perfect marriage, and there's no such thing. So let me just give you this equation. First of all, a good marriage, listen to what I'm telling you, a good marriage is based upon one person in the marriage actually working hard at making a good marriage. Do you hear what I just said? A good marriage. So if you ever hear me say, I think we have a good marriage, or I think you have a good marriage, or I know people have a good marriage, it's one person in that marriage. Now, I'm not saying the other person doesn't work at it at times. I'm just saying one person is devoted to that marriage by the things of God to make that marriage work. Okay? A great marriage is two people working to make that marriage work based upon what God says. That's a great marriage. Okay? Now, a marriage headed to destruction, divorce, problems, is nobody working. I'm not saying that they don't work at times. I'm saying that the majority of the time they're not working at it. They're just not working at it. What does that look like? What that looks like is this. They use all sorts of different placebos to get from one day to the next day. For example, he goes to the gym a lot, she goes to the gym a lot. They hang out with separate friends a lot, take different vacations. They go to parties, they go to dinners, they do different things. They just don't want to spend a whole lot of time together. They just don't. They throw a whole lot of money, a whole lot of whatever they possibly can. And it's usually with booze, drugs, things like that. That's what I mean by placebos. And they're just headed for destruction. The writing is on the wall. Now, one of them, the light bulb goes on. And they start working at it. Anybody ever watch Fireproof? In the movie Fireproof, what's his name, Cameron? Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
He begins to work hard at his marriage. And his wife is planning on leaving him as she begins to flirt with infidelity. She's going to have this affair with his doctor. But you can begin to see what I'm saying if you've seen this movie, because Kirk Cameron is doing everything he can. He begins to pray, even though he didn't believe in all that. He kind of moved away from it. He follows these steps. I think it's based upon a 40-day.
Up there.
Yeah, and the bottom line simply is this: is all this is based upon Scripture, but again, he works at it. And that's evident. That's why I say a good marriage, because a good marriage can stay together. A good marriage can turn the corner if you have one person. And I'm basing this on this. The Bible says, I believe it's in 1 Corinthians, that Jesus reconciled the world to himself. Reconciliation can come through one person. However, salvation has to come through two. In other words, Jesus salvation offered to Phil can only happen by me being reconciled to Jesus as Jesus was reconciled to me. See that? It has to be an agreeing upon two of us. And that's why I say a good marriage, because in 2 Corinthians, Paul says, hey, if you have a believing spouse, don't leave. Because how do you know what God will do? So one person in the marriage makes a difference. There's hope. You can still have a good marriage. Two is obviously the key. But when you don't have any, then that's pretty much left up to the enemy. All right? Here's the other thing too. This right here, this crazy cycle right here, and you might want to write this down because this is important, is all based upon performance. It's all based upon performance.
Staying in the crazy cycle based upon performance.
That's how you get in it, and that's how you stay in it. It's like, what are you doing for me? What haven't you done, and why aren't you doing it? I am not going to love you until you respect me. And I'm not going to respect you until you love me. And it's all based upon performance. It's like, really? I work, and I got to come home to this? Or I work also, and you treat me like this? You don't show me any love. You don't show me any respect. It's all based upon performance. And because of that, it feeds the crazy cycle. Because now we have fodder for the fire. And let me tell you something. When you have fuel, why would the fire go out?
Like 2 years walking around throwing logs on fire.
That's right. And that, as humans, we love that. Give me reason, and I'll show you a cause. And that's what it just feeds it. Jesus said, no greater love than a man had, that he laid his life down for his brother. Which, by the way, is the second greatest commandment. And let me tell you something. It's hard to lay your life down for your spouse when they're maligning you. Did you hear what I said? When you know they're wrong, it's hard. It's like, really, Lord? Really? I got a list right here. I know you know everything, but just in case, I wrote some things down here. Just in case. And then God says, well, just in case you didn't know, I also have a list. And it hasn't changed. Let's go to the next one. You need that pink finger.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here's how you break the crazy cycle. Believe it or not, it's so simple. It's easy. It's just hard to do. It's hard to do. First of all, you gotta dare to ask, forgive me. Kurt, can I put you on the spot? Okay. Let's just say you and Hazel got in a big old argument. All right?
Okay.
Could you ask Hazel to forgive you?
Yeah.
What would be the conditions?
There should be no condition.
There you go.
Good answer.
Let me just say this to you. Let me just say this to you. We love and we respect based upon it being a command from God, which is unconditional. And you ask for forgiveness not based upon who is right or who is wrong, but based upon What? Who is more mature? Based upon who is more mature. Hey, do you think Jesus did anything wrong to go to the cross? Do you think he did anything wrong to be treated the way he was treated? No. And yet, in every instant, he was the one that said, Father, forgive them. He was always the one more mature.
Exactly.
Always. The one who is more mature will ask for forgiveness. Not the one who is right, not the one who is wrong, but the one who is more mature. That's how you break the crazy cycle. Because let me tell you something. When the devil was tempting Jesus in the desert, what happened? What happened eventually? What does the Bible say happened eventually?
He fled.
Yeah. He fled. He left. And let me tell you something. Eventually, your spouse, or whoever the person is, eventually, they'll just stop. The crazy cycle stops. Because they have nowhere to go. Even if they go like this, yeah, well, I'm glad you asked for forgiveness. It's about time you realize you're the one that's wrong. Father, forgive them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And do you really think God is blind? God has a fix for the fix. He does. It's been my experience that when God begins to fix the fix, it's usually the one who's been the more humble, the one that's been the one that's been the more mature, is usually pleading with God to not discipline him. It's like weird. Because usually you're sitting there like, Lord, you know, this is a snow day, and it's pretty bad out there, and if they were to crash their car, it would all be legal. You know? But I understand. How do you want to do it, God? I'm not trying to tell you how to discipline them. Because you're in charge, right? But usually what happens is that person is sitting there when God's disciplining them. They're the ones praying and interceding and saying, you know what, Lord, I know they deserve this, and I know they need this, and I know that you're doing this out of love, but I'm also interceding for them, Lord. Be merciful. Be gracious. Because that's agreement with Christ, who walks amongst the candlesticks. So who moves first? The one who's more mature. Don't some wives feel uncomfortable showing respect to a husband? Well, wives, what do you think? Is that true? Huh? Don't look at me like that. Like, you're going to ask me that in public? Really? Is that hard? You know, you're not a married wife, but is it hard for you to like show respect to your dad when your dad doesn't deserve it?
Yeah, that's hard.
You're going to slow down with that answer.
Take a breath. Take a moment to compose yourself.
Okay, I heard you the first line.
Think about it, Pita.
Waiting for you to call on me.
How come that's hard?
Because you're being unlovable
Okay.
towards me anyway.
Yeah. See that? Like a true woman.
Mm-hmm.
See, not being mean towards me, but being unlovable. Is that how about you, Melissa? Is that the way you feel? Or how do you see that? Is it hard to show Paul respect if he is being rude?
Yeah.
Huh. Jackie? Is that difficult for you?
It is to an extent because I could turn around and be the same way.
Tit for tat.
Huh. Cuts both ways, huh?
Yeah. And that's where we have to humble ourselves for forgiveness.
So is it harder for you to be humble to your husband? No.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. How about you, Amanda? Do you find it difficult?
Yeah,
You do.
I get upset.
Huh.
So I just like, I don't want to be disrespectful. So I just leave him alone until he's ready to feel better.
Okay. But if you had your way, what would you do?
I'd probably yell at him.
Get a bottle? A stick?
Yeah.
Huh. Hazel, how about you?
I had no reason to, ever.
Okay. He had no reason to ever get upset with you?
Oh, yeah,
You have ever a reason to get upset with him?
never.
Never. Wow.
The mom.
I'd like to be married again.
Get up and teach.
We're coming to your house to see what you're doing. Right.
All right. Well, good. Good. How about what if a husband doesn't deserve respect? Anybody here? No, we're just asking for some candid honesty. Are there husbands that don't deserve respect? Does your dad ever not deserve respect?
Don't lump us all together.
All right, I just joined your category. Let me go backwards. Is there ever a time when Anthony does not deserve respect? How come?
Because the Bible says to respect.
Okay, but is there still times, even though the Bible commands you, you're right, it does, unconditional respect, but is there times when he does not deserve it? Yes. Yeah. How about you, Melissa? That perfect Paul in all his ways. Is there ever a time that he doesn't deserve respect?
Get closer.
Yeah, what was the question?
Is there ever a time when he does not deserve respect? Maybe the question I should ask is,
I mean, he deserves it.
right, but is there ever a time when you don't feel like giving him respect?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe what I should ask is this. One of the women, tell me what is respect. Not one of the men. Tell me what respect is.
Washing his clothes.
Huh?
Washing his clothes. Washing his clothes.
Washing his clothes. Wow. Huh? Feeling needed? Okay, that's good stuff. Both of those are right in the camp. That's not a definition, but it's definitely an action that expresses it. Good.
I was going to say loyalty.
Loyalty, again, a good action. Those are good. Those are even better than the definition, but I'm looking for a definition. One of the guys tell me, what is a definition of respect?
Don't disrespect.
Thank you.
That's simple.
That's blue. Yeah. That's blue talking right there. That's blue talking right there. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Absolute sense.
That's blue talking right there. A man will always say, if you respect me, you simply will not disrespect me. So now that we know that a man's definition of respect is don't disrespect me, how do you think women, now let's make it general, let's not make it personal, how do you think women could disrespect their husbands?
Like an example?
Yeah, I don't want you to.
I don't know, like humiliating them,
Yes,
demeaning them.
yes,
Questioning
Be
their authority.
disloyal.
Yeah.
yes. Exactly. Let me say this. Now, in the secular world, women will always talk about a man's privates as a way of belittling and demeaning, as if that is a coup de grace. However, one of the most disrespectful for a man, not for a woman. I'm going to show you what for a woman it is. Not that a woman's not offended, not that a woman's not hurt. That's what Melissa said. And that is to cheat on. Now, for a man, cheating isn't just necessarily committing adultery. It's the whole persona. In other words, engaging in conversation with a man that you should not be having that conversation with to begin with. All right, I'm going to show you some things when we go a little bit further into the slides. I'll show you some of these. Undermining authority. That's good. What kind of authority are we talking about? Headship. For example, if in fact a husband and wife are co-equal and there's an agreement upon a decision, that decision now has synergy in it, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean by that synergy? In other words, like take for instance, you have this parent who says, let's do this. There is energy behind that. There's a certain amount of power, there's a certain amount of authority. You follow me? You know, the wife, the husband can say, well, okay, let's do it, but, okay. But when the husband and wife are in agreement together and they say, let's do this, can you see how now it's much stronger? That's called synergy. Now it's much, much more powerful. That's why in the scriptures it says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined, cleave, to his wife, and they shall become one. Because of synergy, and you all know the illustration about the two Clydesdales. The one Clydesdale pulls 9,000, it's a blue ribbon Clydesdale, pulls 9,000 pounds on a dead skid, pulls it. The blue ribbon Clydesdale pulls 9,000 pounds. Together, teamed together, they pull how much? 32. 32,000. You would think 18,000. But because of the synergy, in other words, them working together, looking at each other and drawing strength from each other in the unity and drawing off of each other, the fact they're looking at each other and they're drawing from each other because they have the ability to see each other and they feel each other, they create a synergy and they're able to pull 32,000.
Because they're in agreement with each other.
Exactly. They're not only in agreement, but they're working towards in that agreement.
Towards a common goal.
So that synergy. So then you have what you just said, undermining that authority. In other words, you have the spouse who goes out and does something totally different. And the other spouse says, but I thought we agreed. I thought we agreed. You said that you were in agreement. We weren't going to do that. You said no. Or you said yes. And now here we are. And the other person says, I never said that.
Those are recorded.
All right. Next. So, there's the energy. We call it the energy or the synergy. Because when he loves, she is motivated to respect. Somebody will say, but what if she doesn't? You keep loving. Remember, unconditional. It's unconditional. Now then, when she's motivated, she'll respect. She'll respond with respect. When she responds with respect, he's motivated to love. And now what you have is you have a synergy within the marriage, within the union, that actually makes that union very powerful. You see that? And let me tell you something. When you experience that, the crazy cycle makes you mad. You don't want to stay there. Matter of fact, you both will fight to ask for forgiveness. You both will be quick. That's one thing about Tina and I. It's not like we don't get in trouble, because we do. I wish I could tell you that we were perfect, and that we just had the greatest marriage. Because there's times where we do. We have the greatest marriage. And there's other times we just have a good marriage. But I praise God. We know this.
Yes.
And so we don't stay in that crazy cycle long. We get out of it. And let me just say this to you. Don't wait. Some people go, well, you know what? We were angry yesterday, so we just won't talk about it because eventually it'll just go away. And it does go away. But if anybody knows anything about a ship, and I know I have, 3 sailors in here? Any other sailors? A couple army dogs, right? Some sailors in here. It's my understanding, because I'm not a sailor, I don't know that much about sailing other than sailors like Marines. The submarines. But my understanding is there's something that happens to a ship that's been in the water, and that is that they collect barnacles. And one of the most difficult things to clean off a ship is a barnacle. In some cases, they actually have to grind them off. You just can't scrape them off. If you get them right away, they come off pretty simple.
What is that?
A barnacle is this. Tell me what it is, sailor.
Just a growth on the side.
Yeah, isn't it like a little animal that eventually just dies?
See a living organism. Just give you that.
Yeah, and so what it does is it's like plaque. It's like plaque. And what it does is, if you get it right away, it's pretty soft, it's pretty easy to get it. But if it stays there, it builds up, it gets hard. Like I said, eventually you have to grind it. And that's the same way with a disagreement in a marriage. You think by letting it go, and the next day you just start talking and you just forget it, and it's all like, well, it's all back to normal. No, it's not.
Right.
It's not back to normal. What you're doing is you're letting that stuff collect, and eventually you're going to have to deal with it. And when you get around to dealing with it, you're going to now you're going to have to actually grind it off. In other words, you're going to have to get some counseling, because it's not going to come off. You're not going to be able to just get it off. Don't allow it. The Bible says don't let the sun go down on your anger. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take care of everything that day, that moment before you go to sleep. What it's simply saying is this, is make first peace with God. Because sometimes the best way to handle things is let people have a little bit of space, a little bit of time. Move away from it. And move close to God, but then deal with it. And sometimes the best way to deal with it, in most cases, is simply say, hey, forgive me, I'm sorry. If the person says yes, then let it go. If they say, yes, I forgive you, but we do need to talk about it, then talk about it. Yeah.
So if one spouse says, we need to talk about this, and I don't want to talk about it, then you need to talk about it.
Well, remember the equation. Remember the equation. A good marriage is based upon one person working at it. You can't force the other person to do what they don't want to do. Remember what I told you in the beginning with the snow leopard? If the other person is not prepared to see, if they're not prepared to hear, I'm telling you right now, you can have all the conversation you want. You're not moving. You're not going to move. So sometimes, in most cases, the best thing is let it go. talking about it is only going to make it worse. If that person says, I'm good, let it go. If the person says, well, I'd like to talk about this a little bit more, and I go, why? They're telling you right now, guess what?
It's not over.
They can't see anything beyond their nose. And you're going to have to just get on your knees and pray more and let God handle it. Because they're not ready to see it. And all you're doing is casting pearls before swine. The moment you begin to talk to them about anything, they'll even take the scripture you use and they'll shove it down your throat sideways until you choke on their own fist. I'm serious. All right? Let's go to the next one.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
So when a couple is in this energizing cycle, and obviously things are just going wonderful, that would have a tendency, I would think, to drive them away from other couples and people who would interfere with that.
Good. Number one, always protect your marriage. Number two, always protect your household. Number three, because you're protecting your marriage and protecting your household, protect your children. What do I mean by that? I mean, don't. Jesus made a comment. He says to the Pharisees, he says, how is it that you're so quick to strain the gnats but swallow the camels? Because they were very legalistic. They were always good about catching this, catching that, but yet they were missing everything. In other words, we can be really good about going to church, but then we don't care about what we watch, what we do, what we say, how we talk, and about the people that we hang out with, or the places we go. All those things need to be scrutinized. I know we live in a perverse world. The Bible says we're in this world, just don't be part of it. We can't shut ourselves up and close the windows and put drapes over it and walk around like monks. I understand that. But we have to be watchmen on the wall. We have to be careful. We just don't want to expose. We just don't want to expose ourselves to things just needlessly. There's some things that, guess what? I like to go to the movies. And if it was up to me, I'd like to be the director of all the movies. So a few people need to be killed. Some things need to be exploded. And at the end, somebody falls in love by saying, hey, I love you, and it's over. But that doesn't sell. So I know that it's going to probably have to be a little bit of some other stuff. Now, I have daughters, my wife, daughter-in-law, that they like love stories. So I need to, and I've been learning how to watch love stories. And now I have grandchildren that they watch stuff that I'm like, it's like, okay, this is different. And I'm learning. I'm learning these things. So, you want to just be, you want to be careful, but you don't want to also be so careful that guess what? Everybody's like saying like, Papa, I don't like you because you're boring. You have to be able to also, be in the world, just not of it. You have to be very calculated. Very calculated. I know that wherever I take my family, there's three things. Number one, I'm thinking about their best interest. Part of their best interest is that they're going to be able to enjoy themselves and have a good time. Number two, I'm going to be able to protect them. And number three, part of that protection is I'm going to be able to get them out of there. That's, as a man, that's what goes through my head. Now, my family shouldn't have to think about that stuff, and they don't. When we arrive somewhere, they're always like, walk in the store and the music's on. know, it's like, what can I do? I can't come and turn the music off. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You just have to be aware. Got to be prayed up. You know those things. Go ahead, go next. So, yeah. Okay, this is where we want to really make sure that we understand. This is what we've been talking about. Because when we talk about the deepest need, by God's design, women have a deepest need. A man has a deepest need. And by God's design, only the husband can meet the wife's deepest need. And by God's design, only the wife can meet the husband's deepest need. Now, I don't care what the world says, and I don't care what anybody says. Even in an affair, the opposite sex will try and meet the deepest need of that spouse that is gone wandering. But at the end of the day, they're not going to meet the deepest need. They're going to be fooled. And they're going to be forever fooled. And they'll never have what God designed. Let me tell you something. In the years that I've been counseling, I can tell you this for a fact, because many times when I'm counseling with people who have been remarried, I have to take them back to their first, second, third marriage, whatever it was, and we have to do a lot of unpacking of a bunch of junk that they've been carrying with them, because they never stopped to realize that by God's design, what they're trying to find, what their desire, what their want is to have their deepest need met. And they keep eluding what God designed by trying to find it another way, and there is no other way. Under God's design, the only one that can ever meet your deepest need is your spouse. Now, there are many who will try. The enemy will lie to you. And there is, remember when I talked to you about the brain, there are many different ways that we can fictitiously, in other words, lie to ourselves that it's being met. But let me tell you something. Our deepest need comes to being fulfilled. And in God's design, by God's design, it can only happen by this deepest need. And by the PowerPoint that I have up there, you can see. And you women, you can tell me whether or not I speak pink. Because I can guarantee you what I have up there for a wife, her deepest need is love. And how have I translated that? You tell me if I'm wrong. A deepest need for a woman is assurance, security, and protection. How does that play out? It plays out like this. A woman wants to make sure. In other words, for a husband, for a spouse, and for you that want to and are looking one day to be married, the man that you're looking for, when we talk about character, this is the kind of character that you're looking for. You want to make sure. Assurance means this, that he's in it till death do we part. He's not leaving. See, a woman can see the future, and she can even see the technicolor. She can see even before her babies are born. She can even see the house before it's bought. She can even see furniture in it. She can see all sorts of things. Because for her, there is no such thing as a future without assurance. And so the man, her husband, her future husband, for her deepest need being love, he better be able to assure her that he's going to be able to give her a future. In other words, for better, for worse, richer or poor, sickness and health, till death do we part. You're not running out. We're working through this. We're staying together. I want assurance. Security. A woman that is assured. Now, listen, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna give this little caveat. I'm gonna say a godly woman. But this goes for just mostly, mainly, any woman. Most women. Because there's some women that will contradict me. And that's all right. When I say security, most wives, most women that are wanting to be married, desire to be married, will say this. You know what? If my husband can assure me by the way he loves me that he's with me till death do we part, I don't care where we live. I'll go with him wherever. So long as I know that he's going to provide. So long as I know that he is going to provide for me and my babies. So long as I know I have security with him. I'm not asking to live up on Pale Hill. I mean, it'd be nice. I'm not saying no to a nice house. I'm not saying no to nice vehicles. I'm not saying no to those things. But that's not what I'm asking for. What I'm asking for is security. I'm asking that he not be a lazy bum. That he not sit there and make me be the one to somehow come up with a way. That I know that he's going to be the one to make sure that this family is taken care of. A woman can find her deepest need being fulfilled in a man that will provide security. Protection? Absolutely. If you don't know my wife, she can kick some butt. Yeah, that's all right. But I don't know a woman that doesn't want her man to throw down for her, whether it's a verbal, physical, or by whatever means. Be it with the in-laws, the outlaws, whatever, anyone. Husband, don't you dare let them malign me. I'm not asking you, to put anybody 6 feet under. I'm not asking you to go to jail. I'm not asking you, but don't you dare let somebody malign me. You don't even have to. They might be right in what they're saying, but what I'm saying to you is don't let them impugn me. Don't let them malign me. Don't you stand up for me. You protect me. And especially in front of my children. I'm their mama. I'm their mama. And I want my children to know that first and foremost, you love me, cherish me, honor me. You dignify me. That's all pink talk right there. A woman like that, you'll find her in Proverbs 30. Proverbs 31. You'll find her. That's where you'll find her. Because a woman like that, she gets energized. That's how you spell love. Deepest need. When I'm counseling a couple that's in trouble, and I say, are you meeting your wife's deepest need? Do you even know what her deepest need is? Do you know what your deepest need is? Well, I just want him to just take care of it. Thank you. Thank you. You're correct. Now let's talk a little bit about that. I said, let me put it in words for you, and then you just tell me if I'm right or wrong. And I'll use these 3 words, and then I'll amplify them, and she'll go, yeah, that's exactly it. And you'll say, why don't you just tell me? A lot of people just don't know. They don't understand. Look at it for the man. Remember I told you? Joe said, just don't disrespect me. And for a man, respect. The deepest need is respect me. Here's how it looks like. Validate. Validate me. What does validate look like? Validate is this. Men, we have a weak constitution. Do you women understand what I just said? Or do I need to actually say it? A weak libido. Do I still need to say it? Okay. We second guess ourselves based upon our performance in the marriage bed. That messes with us. And it carries off into our everyday life. That's why we'll ask you things like, hey, I just fixed the faucet, it was leaking. Look at it, it's not leaking anymore. See that? Look at that, don't even drip. And the only thing you can say is, well, yeah, it was leaking for 3 weeks, I'm glad you got to it.
3 weeks, that's quick.
Boom, boom. Put an X to the validating. Then when you sit there and going, you know, I just wish he was just a little bit more intimate. That's the reason. Because all that stuff works subconsciously. Because part of it being validated, the man will always test, because the man's never going to come out and just say, hey, honey, how was I? Unless they're very egotistic. Because remember what he said? Because one of the things that we men do, and we do it really well, it doesn't make a difference. We can be 50, 80, 90, 100 pounds overweight, and we can get in front of the mirror.
Bring out that.
In our shorties, in our little ta-ta-da-das. There he is. And the truth of it is, that's all compensating. Because what we really want to hear is from our wives. We don't need to hear from the women at work. We don't want to hear from the women around us. And let me just say this. Can I just tell you this? Women know this secret. Especially the women who are flirtatious, who recognize a Jezebel spirit and don't mind flirting with the Jezebel spirit. They'll let your husband know. Wow, you know what? You are really good looking. You're nice. Tina, Laura, Rita, and I were sitting there having breakfast one morning. And this woman comes over to our table and she says, excuse me, but I have to just say this. And she says to Tina, she says, you have a beautiful family. And that is a handsome man. A very handsome man. You must be proud of your son. No, that part I just threw in. But she did. She said, very handsome man. Now, was that appropriate or inappropriate? Absolutely. The first part was wonderful. The
She
last
could have
part.
stopped right
Exactly.
there. But she singled you out with the following.
And the thing is this, that's because that's the way the world is. And all I'm saying is this, the world knows it, the devil knows it. Men need to be validated. And we'll say all sorts of things. We'll say all sorts of things in the sense of like sending clues. We need to be validated. We don't need to be puffed up. We don't need smoke. Just validate it. So you say, okay, can you give me a little bit more? And I'll give you a little bit more. Appreciate it. All right? So, we men love to be appreciated. Not just told, but show an appreciation. Now, you might say, well, but wait a minute. I'll say, when your husband walks in the door, wouldn't it be nice to just say, you know what, I have dinner already set up. Go ahead and, I know you want to go and wash your hands, whatever. Come on and sit down, and before we start to eat, I just want to say this. You have the family sitting there, as a wife, you say, I just want to say this before we start eating. Honey, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. We know how much of a sacrifice it is for you to go day in and day out to work and make sure that we're taken care of. To take the responsibility of taking care of us. And we don't want you to ever think for one moment that we take that for granted. And we want you to know how much that means to us. And because of that, you know what? I know we have a supper meal every evening, but we actually have prepared this meal especially just to express how much we appreciate you. This has been made especially for you, just to say thank you. Now, you might say, but wait a minute, I also work a 40-hour week. I understand. But remember what I said? How love assures security protection? It's not that you don't need a special meal done for you, but I'm telling you, for the husband, that validates, energizes, that appreciation goes right in to his energy tank. It does so much more. Rather than just saying, thank you for that. When you're praying as a family, thanking God, I mean, that stuff energizes. When you do that appreciation, hey, you know what? We want to do this for you. And it's like, this, I hear this all the time. You know what? My husband, all he does is bark. He's a barking dog. You do one of two things with a barking dog, right? You don't neuter him. Or feed him, no. You either bring him in the house or you feed him. A barking dog is telling you that they need something. But usually, when somebody's saying, all they do is bark, 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 it's because all they're seeing is the negative part of something they're reacting to. But they're trying to tell you something. They just are. That's the critical stuff right there. Care for. Care for. We men love to be cared for. Not made fun of. It's like, why is it that when men get sick, they're such babies? I don't get sick.
He doesn't.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. Because we love to be cared for. We just enjoy it. The truth be told, most men would drag themselves with a severed arm if they were in a battle. Now, if you have a husband that goes off to work with 103 temperature, he's trying to tell you something. He sees his home, his marriage, more as a battle than as a sanctuary. Yeah. Because if he saw it as a sanctuary, he'd be home.
He'd be home.
Because he'd want to be cared for.
Exactly.
But if he says, you know what, no, I'm going to work, it's because, you know what, this is a battlefield, and we do not, men of honor don't go back and get first aid. They stay in the battle. But by God's design, that's what home is supposed to be all about, right? Both of these, in Ephesians 5, 22 through 33, is where it's an unconditional love, unconditional respect. The reason for the command is because, as Dr. Emerson said, God designed the woman to love, and He designed the man to respect. It's not that women don't desire to be respected, but men know how to respect. Not that men don't want to be loved, but God designed the woman to love. That's why He commands the woman to respect, He commands the man to love, because that's not in the design feature. And if you think about it, God knew what He was doing, because this actually creates the necessary tension within the relationship to work, to forge in that relationship the necessary bond, so that there's always a dynamics going on in that marriage. So are you saying that he needs unconditional respect equal to her need of unconditional love? Absolutely. 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 We can't take time off. Is it difficult? Yeah, it's difficult. It was never meant to be easy. And like I just said, the reason is there's a dynamic, there's a tension there that actually is created within that relationship, that makes that relationship so organic that a couple can be married for 60 years and they're still working at it. And they're enjoying it, they're loving it. It's not old. They're not in two different rooms saying, well, we're married and now we found two different rooms to live in the same house. Next one, Joe. Okay, so there's a reward cycle. Just like I said, His love, regardless of her respect, and her respect, regardless of His love, it just continues. And like I said, it's never based upon whether or not she's responding, he's responding. It will create it. And I've heard this many times. People say, "Well, you don't understand. I've been doing this for a whole week and nothing's happened." Really? God doesn't put a time limit on it. I would have liked to have been around Adam and Eve, because the scripture says that when they were put out in the garden, Adam lived to be like 900 or something like that. But I wonder what it went like for the first 300 years. Like, really, Eve? Really? Adam, you really need to shut up. I've seen you were licking your lips too. So don't just sit there and put it all on me. That crazy cycle probably really went on for a while. Next. All right. Let's move to the next one. Communication. Any questions on the others? Like I said, when we do the series, you guys are going to love it. Communication. The sending and receiving of signals. Right? That's the best way to understand it. And the most simplest. We are constantly sending signals. whether we like it or not. Remember what Dr. Emerson said? The communication is 80% nonverbal, or 90%, I think he said, is nonverbal. So that's why I have up there also body language. And I put words last. Okay? The blockers are mixed signals. So how are you doing? All right. That's a mixed signal, isn't it? Right? Paul, what does this mean? Okay.
No, you're. I mean, like I have read like body languages. It could be anywhere of like it could be that you're cold. Not everybody crosses their arms because they're upset or they're guarding themselves.
Okay, good.
But I was gonna say, but I mean, when in confrontation, whatever, they cross themselves to guard themselves.
Yeah. So there's several different meanings to it. Like Paul said, it could be cold, it could be self-guarded. It could mean that you're thinking. It could mean all sorts of different things, right? But we're constantly sending signals whether we like it or not, or whether we mean to or not. How about our attitude? Does our attitude send signals? Yeah.
Or what?
Attitude.
Oh, attitude. I thought I said something else. Slam the doors.
I just thought you wore heavy shoes.
You stamp me. Or else like,
Rita.
you know, the Bible also talks about that, doesn't it? You know, in Proverbs it gives all sorts of different types of, you know, like, you know, I think it's something about laughter in a time of mourning is like cold water. How about somebody who's ill and you don't know that they're ill, right? Language. I mean, you don't even have to speak a different language, right? I mean,
From a different side of town.
exactly. Exactly. I learned that coming to Pueblo. I didn't realize that there was an east side and there was a Salt Creek. I thought it was like anything on this side of I-25 is east, everything on this side is west, and everything on this side is south, and everything. It's like, no way. I go, I live on the east side. Oh, you do? Where? It's like right off of Constitution and Bonford. No, that's Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? I'm a little few blocks from East High School. That's Belmont. Oh, so where do you live? Well, I live right there on such and such a street. And I go, oh, I thought that was Dog Patch. No, that's not Dog Patch. Dog Patch. It's like, ooh, take it easy. It's like I didn't know that. So yeah. And then you're right, different kinds of terminologies, especially in the drug world. I mean, there's some things that you hear and you have no clue. At least you better not have a clue.
Like that billboard that says "Say no to crack," and it reminds you to pull up your pants.
Yeah. Yeah. Words with dual meanings. Yeah, there's one right there. Say no to crack. Get those drawers up. Yeah. Or silence. When somebody says how you're doing and you don't say anything, they get to fill in the blank. Right? So that can be a real communication consideration too. So how we speak to one another makes a big difference. So we have this swamp cooler in our home, and half the time you can't hear from one room to the other room. And of course, if you're getting older, you don't hear. And then if you're a girl, you don't talk that loud unless you want to. Everything. So I go like this. I go, what? And I hear this, why are you yelling? Why are you yelling? Oh my gosh. If I'm not yelling, it's you can't hear. It sounds like you're yelling. I'm not yelling. Why are you mad? I'm not mad. Because I'm getting mad. Oh my gosh. Well, just don't get more mad.
More mad.
All right. Be careful. Be careful with the blame game. Is there really somebody always to blame? Yeah, there is. Even if it's not their fault. Just don't blame me. It's their fault. Her fault, his fault, I don't care. And the thing is this. One of the things I learned from law enforcement is that there's 3 principles to understanding. Number 1, you got to remove your biases. You can't go in with biases. Number 2, you have to be willing to listen and look at all the evidence, not just some of it. And then number 3, you have to endeavor to understand. You have to endeavor to understand. Those 3 are very critical. And if you have children, you better adopt those 3. Because it's too easy to rule justice that usually becomes injustice. Because usually it's like, Dad, he's hitting me. He's hitting me. He's hitting me. And what's usually the response? Stop hitting her. But what she doesn't tell you is what?
She hit him first.
She's jabbing him with a stick. And he's saying, stop it, stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it. And every time she says he's hitting me, is right after she jabs him. So this is what you see. Endeavor to understand. All right. Let's talk a little bit about relationships. In a relationship, these principles are critical. Again, we just went through love and respect. These principles are critical in any kind of relationship except for love and respect. Only in a relationship that you're talking about where we're talking about your children, we're talking about your husband, your wife, or we're talking about a possibility to marriage. Okay? However, trust is the key one. I mean, I'm talking about your dentist, I'm talking about your banker, I'm talking about whomever. In a relationship. If you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. You go and see your dentist and he or she says, I'm pulling this tooth, and you go, why? And they go, well, it's bad. Then you find out it's not bad. Can you trust them? No. You don't have a relationship. You go to your banker, and your banker is charging you more than what they're supposed to be. Can you have a relationship with your banker? No. That's why most of your relationships are based on acquaintances and not real, true relationship. Agreement. Remember we talked about that. Why agreement? Why is agreement so critical? Yeah, because the Bible says 2 cannot walk together unless they be in agreement. Now listen, I'll say it like this. In a church, people say, this is my church, but if they don't come here, do you have agreement? Mm-mm. No. If we say we do, then we're liars. I love churches that say, We have 100 people, we have 200 people that go to our church, and you go like, I come 35. Well, yeah, well, if everybody came where? Because they are coming, they're just not coming here. You see what I'm saying? Agreement is that we are in agreement. You can always test a friendship. Always test a friendship. You can always trust a relationship by the way they honor the word no. If you have to explain no, if you have to move from no, then that's not a true friendship, and it's definitely not a relationship, is it? In a relationship, you have to have investment, commitment, and there has to be boundaries. Doesn't there? Because if you don't have investment, then what are you basing it on? Because investment means growth, right? If you're not putting anything into the relationship, if a marriage is only based upon what you spoke at the altar and those vows, and that's it, then what are you basing it on? No, there has to be investment. Hey, guess what? We're in trouble. Let's work on it. We're investing. So hopefully we're better than we were yesterday. And our ambition is to be better tomorrow. That's investment. And investment is proven by the commitment. Right? And boundaries will always keep us safe. Go to the next one. So, what are boundaries? Boundaries, very plain and simple. They're legal, they're personal, they're guidelines, structures, space, rules, policy, laws, regulations, codes. Those are all boundaries. And why do we have to have boundaries? Why put this statement in there? Everybody will come in contact with a boundary. That word's not in there. But not everybody has boundaries. Let me ask you this. Somebody give me an example of somebody who doesn't have boundaries.
Teenagers.
Yeah, shame on them. But yeah, that's a good one.
What she said.
Teenagers don't have boundaries. Teenagers, matter of fact, even Proverbs tells us that's why God put sticks on the earth, rods. Who else does it
People
have?
that just say whatever they think, or what comes in their mind.
Yep.
Not what they think, but just what comes in their mind.
Well, sometimes those are just people without filters. But yeah. But who? Somebody tell me somebody who's very visible who doesn't have boundaries.
Melissa said criminals. Criminals?
Absolutely. That's why they're in jail. You don't have boundaries, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to put you in a boundary. It's called a cage. Yeah. Absolutely. Boundaries are set for me. I had somebody, when I teach these classes, I said, who are boundaries for? And this one guy said, well, boundaries are for everyone. And I said, boy, I'd love. I said, the problem is that that's not the way the world sees it. I said, matter of fact, I said, the jails and the prisons are evidence, are proof to that. Matter of fact, they're not only proof to that, I says, there's a lot of people out there right now, they're saying that you are driving their car. That you're carrying their money. That your house is filled with their stuff. And the reason they say it is because they have no boundaries. Do you hear me? And then some guy goes, man, I feel you, bro. I feel you. That's right. They have no boundaries. Boundaries are for you. Boundaries are for your protection and the protections of others. See, because I have boundaries, there's a lot of people living today. I didn't have boundaries, I'd be in prison or dead. Because I can be just as criminal-minded as anybody else. But my boundaries keep me safe. And they keep my family protected. And they keep me protected. It also helps me to achieve my goals and my character. People hate boundaries, and they hate my boundaries. But my boundaries are there for my protection. Does that make sense? And the more boundaries you have, keep you sane. See that statement? The absence of boundaries will reveal the level of dysfunction of a person. Right? All right, next. Anybody seen this before? 5 love languages? The only reason I put these up there, this is by Gary Chapman. He has a book out, 5 love languages. You need to know what your love language is. Now, knowing your love language helps your mate know how to best minister to you. Because if you notice, words of affirmation, people who have their love language as words of affirmation, because remember I was telling you when I was going like the woman's deepest needs is this and the man's deepest needs, and some of you are thinking, well, I love being assured too, and I'm not a woman. I understand. That's probably because that's part of your love language. Because I was talking in general terms. But if you look at, if your love language is affirmation, then what you want is sincere compliments, words of appreciation. In other words, when you cook a meal, when you do something, you like for people to express appreciation for what you do. That's just your love language. And you want it to be sincere. You don't want a lot of, just a lot of smoke. Oh, you look so lovely. And it's like, really? I haven't even taken a bath. I haven't showered yet. It's like, well, I was just trying to be nice. Don't be nice. Be honest. Some people's love language is quality time. Undivided attention. The focus is on them. Purposeful affection. That's their love language. And you go, well, that's kind of selfish on their part. No, listen. If you're wanting to minister to them in their love language. This isn't a needy person. This is just saying, hey, you want to speak to me, and you want to show me love, this is how I want it. Don't say, hey, I want to spend some time with you, and then you have all the kids, and you have everybody else around, and it's like, your attention's not focused on me. I want quality time with you. Some is receiving gifts. And the gift is not based upon the amount of money you can spend on it. That's a selfish, needy person. So if you want to buy me something really expensive, I'm not a gift kind of person, but I will take the gift. But it's the symbol that's important. It has to be tangible. It's like, I was thinking about you today, that's my gift for you. Really? That's you.
You're supposed to know I thought of you.
Yeah, no, they want something in their hand. They want something. It's an expression in giving. You're thinking of me. So somebody's love language that is giving, is gift, they want something. But it's something that expresses that you're thinking of them. Something tangible. So, here, Hazel, I want you to have this. This is just my way of saying, you know what, I appreciate you coming to this class today. I know it's not a whole lot, but this is mine, and I'm giving it to you. That's how a person whose language is if their love language is gifting, that's how they see it. It's like, to them it's a big deal,
enough orders.
Not necessarily, but you would think they are, but whatever they have a reason for it. And they're not buying it for themselves. They have things from people. Acts of service, doing things that require thought, planning, time, effort, and energy. Acts of service. Now you might say, I love doing things for people. No. That's your gifts. A person who, like, wow, you did that for me? That means so much to me. That's their love language. When people they do things for them. That's their love language. Okay? Physical touch, holding hands, kissing, embracing, hugging, sex. Now somebody might say, I gotta be honest. I'm not that demonstrative. I don't want to go walking down the street holding hands. I'm not all that big hugging, but I am into sex. Okay, so be it. How you doing? So be it, that's fine. That's wonderful. But again, that's not really your love language. Because love language is a whole thing. See? And there's some people, believe it or not, if when you're talking to them, now you have to be really careful, obviously. But this right here means a lot to them. But you have to be very careful because a person whose love language is touching, they don't want everybody touching them. They want you, who is their spouse. So if you're their spouse and you're not touching, holding hands, sitting next, hugging, those kind of stuff, right? Does that make sense? All right. Next, and I think that might be.
I think that is it.
Okay. All right. So we've come to the end, and I'm glad we approached it like this. Any questions so far?